So there's one question. It's on the tips of everyone's tongue. We have a booth, of course, out there. I very much hope that if you haven't seen us already, you come by and have a conversation with us. But what's the first thing that we hear when anybody stops by our booth and talks about their biggest problem? Of course, it's labor, this labor crisis. But I do want to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing when we talk about labor. So if you could, quick show of hands, who in this room, for your plants, for your operations, for your shop floor teams, who here feels overstaffed? Nope, didn't think so. It's a labor crisis because it's a labor shortage. There's not enough people out there that want to come and work at your plants, their plants, anyone's plants right now in the food and beverage space, and of course, in manufacturing at large. So it is Las Vegas. It's a fun place. Anyone who goes to the McCormick's Place convention in Chicago will enjoy that one as well. But if you could indulge me in the spirit of Las Vegas, I'd like to tell you all a story. We're going to take a walk through the average day in the life of a food and beverage leader. So if you could, please close your eyes, the better to foster your imagination. I do have material prepared up here, so you can keep them open if you want. If you had a long night last night, feel free to close them. No one's going to judge you. But as we think about any manufacturing leader, they all feel and deal with the same problems. And what do those problems look like? You might wake up, it's a beautiful morning, birds are chirping, sun is out. What's the first thing any of us do? Roll out of bed, pick up our phone, check our emails. Good news. Email from Walmart. They want more of your product. Consumers cannot buy enough of your product, and I suspect that is true for many of you. You've never had more demand, and you've never had a higher strain on your capacity. That good news, though, may quickly turn to bad news. Why is that? We don't know how we're going to fill any of those orders. And why is that? Anyone who picks up a business press in any major news publication can tell you that there is a crisis of labor. And so when you call your plant manager, you call your operations director, you're not asking, are we short-staffed? You're asking, how bad is the damage? Is it 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%? And I'm sure for some of you, maybe even more. So what do? Well, we have people, we have orders we have to hit. We want to go get that revenue. So we take the same people that we have and we run them longer and harder. More overtime, more hours. And you can't help but see, as you're walking through your plant, on the faces of those frontline workers, it takes a strain on people. You know, it takes a toll. It's not easy to do, to come in and put in 80-hour weeks consistently, week over week over week. And so what happens? We know it's not sustainable. We know in the long run this will increase our turnover, but we have to get this product out. We've got Walmart, we've got Costco on the other line. So perhaps after a very long day, a successful day, we hit our orders, we got the product out, we're taking a drive down the street, we look left, we see a $2,000 signing bonus for McDonald's. We look right, we see a $3,000 signing bonus for Amazon. And we know that our people are going to be driving those same streets and they're going to see those same signs and they're going to have those same thoughts. Maybe I should take a look at that. Maybe it's going to be a little bit easier than the overtime that I'm putting in. Maybe it's going to be a little bit easier than the harsher environments I may be working in a manufacturing plant. As you're driving, you take a quick right, you're almost home, and what do you see? Of course, none other than a brand new Amazon distribution center being built. Our greatest fear in food manufacturing. Of course, I say this all in jest, but I talk to food leaders every single week, every single day. And there's no doubt about it. This labor crisis is the most challenging issue that I've heard customers dealing with in the past, really 5, 6, 7 years since Redzone kind of got our start. And I don't know if that's shared by you, but I suspect it's shared by some of you. No doubt about that. But why is that happening? Well, we were hoping that this would go away once COVID went away. Once people got vaccinated, people want to come back in the plant, they're not afraid anymore. How about those unemployment benefits? Everyone I talk to talks about those unemployment benefits. No doubt, they are a cause of people staying home. But are they the total solution once those go away? We don't think so, because in states where they have went away, the problem has not solved itself. And it's not just shared by you. It's shared by CEOs of big food companies. What's the first thing they talk about on their earnings call? Why are your margins being eaten away? Inflationary pressures, labor shortage. General Mills, Campbell's Soup. This is a new normal, this labor constraint. This labor shortage is worse than anything I can remember. These are the words of leading food companies, and you can imagine what they're doing to try and solve that problem. That cascades down to every other single food plant in North America. What are the dynamics that are pushing this? What we're seeing is that some industries are being disrupted, some industries are being displaced. I'll give you an example. In the food and beverage industry in North America, or in the United States, excuse me, we think there's about approximate 2 million shop floor frontline workers in that industry. And I mentioned Amazon. Well, Amazon just went on a hiring binge. I don't know if any of you saw that, but they put out 500,000 open positions for their DCs. That's a quarter of the whole food and beverage workforce. That's a lot of billboards. That's a lot of resumes. That's a lot of wage increases coming down the pipe. But additionally, it's not just about who's out there trying to hire your labor, but it's also about the labor that's leaving your plant. What we have seen is a 1.2 million increase in baby boomer retirement in the past year and a half since COVID started. They had a very different expectation for what they wanted out of their employer. They wanted a job for life. They wanted tenure. They were happy to come in and work. But those people are leaving. They're retiring early, and we don't think they're coming back. So what do you have to do? You got to hire millennials. Millennials are now the biggest generation in the workforce. What do they want? They don't really want a job for life. Actually, they just kind of want a job right now. What can I do for the next 8 hours before I get back on Facebook or Twitter or whatever it might be? And I'm a millennial, but I don't really do that stuff, but I appreciate the same needs that they have. They expect more technology, and they're looking for it. And what we're seeing, no doubt about it, as we talk to our customers, are these same dynamics are happening within our food and beverage community. And so what we did was commissioned a study with a core group of customers. We call our community think tank. We like to get feedback from them. When we have new products, we do our beta releases with them. They have an opportunity to test some of our stuff before everyone else gets it. And we asked them some very simple questions. We looked at what did we ask them in 2019? And then what did we ask them now? When we asked them in 2019, are you short-staffed and by how much? In 2019, it was four people. 4 people, short-staffed, that's not too bad. You can get through that. Now, as you can see, 34 people. That's a lot more. Additionally, what kind of turnover are you seeing? Previously, 28%? You know, not great. I'm sure some people have higher, some people have lower. Now, up to 44%, almost half your workforce. And that's probably underestimating for many people in this audience. And additionally, because those baby boomers are leaving en masse, and because we're backfilling them with millennials, the average tenure has dropped, almost cut in half, because millennials are quicker to leave, looking for the next thing. Do we think this problem is going to fix itself? No. According to Deloitte's Manufacturing Institute, they think that this problem, as bad as it feels right now, is only going to get worse. 500,000 workers short right now, 2.1 million workers short in the manufacturing industry in North America by 2030. So what we are seeing and what we're hearing is, what does it actually cost to attract, develop, and retain an employee? What is the cost of this problem? So again, we commissioned a study with our core customers, and we asked, what does it take to get to one full-time employee that you can count on staying in your facility? And they said the magic number was day 90. If I can get somebody to day 90, I know they're going to stick around. Why? Because we have an inviting place. We take care of our employees. If I can keep them around for 90 days, they're going to stay for a lot longer. So what does it take to get one employee in your plant with a 90-day tenure? Well, according to our customers, 50 to 70 applicants. That's a lot of applicants to read through. Hire 10. Hey, come on down to the plant. We're excited to have you come on board. On day 1, when you're actually looking around for them, hey, we're missing 2 people. Why is that? Well, they got another job. They've been applying to a dozen different employment centers every single day. Of course, we want to go through the first week, and what happens? Maybe by hour 4, one of those have peeled off. By day 3, another's peeled off. But we have our people. We've been here for a week. And of course, as we continue down this journey, another person leaves, maybe day 10, another person leaves, day 30. And we have one employee left standing at the end of that 90-day period. That's a lot of people, that's a lot of money, and that's a lot of time invested for our customers in trying to get this problem right. What is the cost of that? I could go through these numbers, but I would say the biggest cost, bar none, is the opportunity cost of the revenue you could generate, because people, by and large, want your products, is what I suspect. People want to buy your stuff, and you got to get it out to them, and that's the true cost that companies are facing right now. So we asked our customers, what are you guys doing right now to retain your employees? What are you doing to attract employees and retain employees? And of course, predictably, 90% said increasing our pay, increasing our signing bonus. That's what everyone else is doing. We got to keep up. We got to match that pace. And that's all well and good, but according to that same Deloitte Manufacturing Institute study, when we ask these employees, what matters to you? What makes you stick around an employer long term? Pay is only 14th on the list of reasons. 14th. That's pretty surprising. What's more important to these individuals to stick around your plant and work in your business long term? Things we may not have expected, but they are very important to millennials. Absolutely no doubt about it. They are very important to millennials. And what is that? I enjoy my work. I feel there's a purpose in what I'm doing. I feel a sense of camaraderie with my coworkers. I feel like we're a team. I feel like I have a sense of ownership when I come into the building every single day, and I have an obligation to the individuals that are working on my line, and they have an obligation to me. And that we have a family-oriented culture. It doesn't mean it has to be a family-owned company, but is it a culture that, by and large, looks after their people, and do they feel that? So the good news is, you don't just have to keep raising your sign-on bonus. There's an opportunity right now, if you focus on what we call the employee experience, to dramatically increase your retention rate. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It doesn't come in an MBA. It doesn't come on an online article. It takes a little bit of hard work, but it's very rewarding. And if you can get there, you're going to be making more product while your competitors are scrambling to hire and call every temp agency in the book. What we're all about, of course, is the employee experience, because we believe if you invest in your employees, they will return that tenfold. But I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to give an opportunity of our customers to speak to that experience as well. And they're going to be speaking, of course, about our digital production system, which for those who are not familiar with Redzone is a combination of two things. There's the technology. Come to our booth. We'll give you a demo. I hope you like it. But we pair that with a coaching system where somebody's on site working with your team, really getting to meet everyone in your plant and helping build that formula, those techniques, those habits that ultimately we know drive success and drive engagement. What I have seen personally, as I've worked at Redzone almost since day one, is that this has been a problem, and it continued to be a problem, and it was termed the labor challenge until about 2020. And then that labor challenge became a labor crisis. And we felt the only way to solve that crisis is not moving away from the people. It's not automating the people out of the equation. You need to automate. You can automate more. We're absolutely not going to tell you to do otherwise. But we feel there is a place to invest in your employees. And if you invest in your employees with time and money, they will step up to the plate. I can say that because I've seen it happen hundreds of times. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our panel. Mr. Matt Crabtree from Redzone will be leading it. But again, I really appreciate everyone's time so far. We're looking forward to a very helpful conversation.
Nathan Hyde, Chief Operating Officer for Honeyville. Honeyville's a food manufacturer that focuses on dry powdered mixes, as well as we have our own distribution, and we also have a mill. And so our experience with Redzone started in late 2018, where we had some new plant coming up, and we knew we needed to change some of the ways we looked at things. So we're a family-owned, family-operated business. At that point we were, and we knew that we needed to get some better corral and put some things around what we expected out of the manufacturing floor. So.
Awesome, thank you. Mark?
Yep, Mark Ronzon, Director of Beverage Manufacturing for Ocean Spray Cranberries. We have 4 beverage plants and 6 food plants between North America, Chile, Lanco, Chile, and Manso, Canada. I happen to be responsible for the 4 beverage plants. We rolled out Redzone last year, kind of started our relationship in the spring, right before COVID kind of came into play. We were working that right up into March, and then we rolled out our first plant. Our phase 1 is small plant, large plant last year in September and November. One of the plants here in Henderson, and one of our plants, our larger plant, Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. But that was our first phase, and now we'll roll into a phase 2 starting in the next month or 2 with our Texas plant, and then Kenosha, Wisconsin will be our final plant, and then before we look at our food plants after that.
All right, Jeremiah.
Good afternoon, Jeremiah Tillman, COO for DFS Gourmet Specialties. We make what we call craft butter. We're based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. I've been with the organization about 4 months now. So this is my second go around with Redzone. My previous organization, we had Redzone as well. We had it there for about 3 years. And our experience so far has been tremendous, just like my past experience. has been extremely tremendous with Redzone. We are in the productivity rollout module. We actually just completed our 90-day plan, and we saw an 88% productivity uplift in the past 90 days. We're getting ready to roll out the compliance module here just this next month in October.
Very good. Well, guys, thank you for being here and being so generous with your time. I think to build on what Chris was saying earlier, I think there was a general sentiment that COVID and some of the unemployment benefits that were being offered, once that expired, once we kind of got over the initial surge of COVID, that maybe things would return to some semblance of normal from a labor standpoint. And I'm just curious to hear from you guys what the reality of that was, and maybe what the expectation was going into it. So, Nate, I know in Utah,
Yeah.
it's a big
So,
deal.
so we've been around 70 years. We built a new plant 4 years ago, and really, we built that plant. Part of the reason we built that plant was we foresaw the baby boomers were going to be starting to transition out of the workforce, and we needed to automate as well as get close to some of the education centers that we could pull on some of those employees. With that being said, we anticipated we had 10, 15 years to really get prepared for this. Well, COVID hit and really escalated that quite quickly for all of us. I think, as Chris talked about, it became a crisis. And so we were optimistic that maybe when the benefits came off that we would see a resurgence of employees coming back into the workforce. Optimism, it was there, but we haven't seen it. We really haven't seen it, and we believe kind of what Chris talked about is the baby boomers have really got to the point that they just said enough's enough. We're going to move out of the workplace, and there's a big gap there that we're trying to fill, especially in Utah. We're in a business park, and tongue-in-cheek, Chris said that an Amazon center comes a mile and a half down the road. It literally is coming a mile and a half down the road for us. So we're in some crisis management right now with the employee side, and we're doing some very unique things. But the things that we're doing really align with our culture as a family-owned, family-operated business, as well as kind of what we found in Redzone. So.
Glad to hear it. Mark, anything to add? What was it like in Henderson and Kenosha?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at all 4 of our locations, we saw the same thing. No real major shift in availability of employees. I think, I would agree. I think folks have made the decision manufacturing maybe isn't for them. No interest in 12-hour shifts and every other weekend. So I think, overall the attraction still comes down to, and I think Nathan said it right, I mean, how you treat folks and the community you create within your factories. So, Redzone obviously a big part of that.
And Jeremiah, obviously you're in a similar job market to Nate, but you've kind of been through the Redzone journey in your past. I think speaking to the culture and trying to differentiate that way, what have you seen from the Redzone impact on the culture?
Yeah. So I've been in about 13 different plants over my career, all over the United States, the Northeast, the Southeast, the Midwest, new plants, old plants. And one of the things I'll never forget is when I was applying for a position as a production manager, and I sat down in front of the plant manager and had all my resume out, my cover letter, and I had all this technical, and I was working on my MBA, and I was going on and on. This was back in the days when the boss could smoke in the office, and he had nothing on his desk, and he took my resume and cover letter and slid it aside and lit up a cigarette, and he said, "We're in the people business. We just happen to be making bread." He said, "But we're in the people business. Tell me what you know about people." And so that would be the one point I guess I'd really like to. We're all out here in the people business, regardless of what it is you do. And every plant has a different culture, different demographics, and it's very important that you understand your team, your culture, and every place is different, right? Some places I had, 20 plus year veterans. Some places when I started up a brand new facility, it was all My average age was 25. You have to understand your culture, and at the end of the day, it's about building relationships and understanding your people. And Redzone has been a great tool. I wish I experienced Redzone 20 years ago, but this is my second go around with Redzone, and it's a great connection engagement tool. It's a very powerful engagement tool to allow your people and your team to have a voice. So that'd be you have to understand your people, and you have to understand your culture, and not one size fits all. Is what I would add, Matt.
Yeah, and I think to that end, Nate, we were talking yesterday about this generational shift and the difference between what you could expect and what was expected of you as an employer. How have you seen that shift manifest itself in your plant?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it several times, Matt. But the shift is they and everyone in this room knows this. The new generation that's coming into the workforce is very technically inept. They're very talented at that. They can quickly look at something and become intuitive to it very, very rapidly. We see that it's that shift from binders on the shelves, manuals. Then we made the shift into getting it into some sort of software technology with the manuals there. And now it's gone to what we utilize Redzone for is really one of the pieces that we utilize it for is we want to have those manuals on people's phones. We want them to be able to be at the technology or at the equipment and be able to pull up what's happening. And they want that as well. And if we don't have that in our sites, we lose some of those great talents that we're recruiting out of these technical schools. We lose them very rapidly if we don't have that in available. So what I see from us is where the company's moving to meet what they are. And it used to be, when I started my career, it was the employee moved to the company. I actually believe the company is now moving to the employee and what they desire.
Yeah, I completely agree.
At least the successful ones are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of that is, why wouldn't I go drive for Uber and make my own schedule, work when I want, as opposed to working a 12-hour shift.
Because we give out free pancakes. That's why.
So,
no, just kidding.
No, Mark, anything that you guys are doing differently in terms of attracting talent or offering flexibility?
Yeah, I think overall the point about how people learn today versus how they learned even 5 years ago, very different. That's one part of it. I think the other piece, it's a terrific point, is you're evolving to meet the demand that the employee has. That's a very important part, I think, of that. When I look at Redzone and I think about how that has kind of connected that, I don't think we could have delivered the same experience. Just being able to say, hey, we're going to do this, or we'll buy a module or this piece. I think what it does, you bring people together innately from the relationship side. And I do believe, and I share a similar thought, the relationships that you have with your workforce is what gets you through the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
Right. So, I do know there are companies where, they're turning over at 45%. I've heard that number. I think on average, we've seen 14 to 18%. And some of that is people just saying, hey, I don't want to do 75, 80 hours a week, which, it isn't for everybody. But I think the connectivity within Redzone, there's, you're not just the operator, you're not just maintenance, you're not just a quality tech. This is your nucleus, your family of people that are making decisions about their day-to-day. So I think it plays to that. It plays exactly to that need that the employee today coming in the door is going to want.
I'll share this. For those that haven't had the opportunity to utilize Redzone, I have an iPad, I take it home. First day I took it home, my 10-year-old son was able to walk through it. It's intuitive, and he was able to see what's going on. Hey, red's good, or red's bad, green's good, and he was able to flip through the screens. And that's what, that's a 10-year-old child that's going to expect even more technology when he gets into the workforce. And we're seeing that today. We can train a lot faster utilizing Redzone. And we come from we're 70 years old. We did not have, when we went looking for an MES system, what we found was Redzone, which Jeremiah is exactly right. It's a culture and an engagement tool. We lucked into it, and we were very skeptical when we started. And we found what we like to call the golden ticket for what our operation needed, and for our transition from really a family-owned business that was somewhat antiquated in some of our behaviors, to really move us into the next level. So sorry to jump in there, but I thought that's an important point to make.
No, it's really good, and I think the focus on building the culture on the shop floor is something that maybe wasn't as much of a focal point in the past, and the technologies that were available didn't facilitate that or didn't enable that.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things we were talking about is, historically, there's a bit of a disconnect between the culture on the shop floor and the culture in the office. So I would ask, how many of your plants have changed your attendance policies on the shop floor to align with more what the attendance policy is in the office? See a couple. Let's see Honeyville. Yep. I think that's a big deal. That's a big cultural divide between what is expected of the people that work upstairs and the people that are working on the front lines. So, as far as what you guys have seen as a result of Redzone and what the impact has been, I think one of the ways that we have to deal with this crisis is by getting more productive. It's not an option. We're having to do more with less. So, Jeremiah, I'll start with you. You mentioned it in your opener, but what's the impact that engagement has driven at your plant?
Yeah, so we're early into it. As I mentioned, we just completed our 90 days, and we just had a big celebration last week. I mean, it was impressive. I mean, I've had Redzone before. My first go around, we had a 67% productivity lift. This time around, we had an 88% productivity lift. And, I've had a lot of line performance solution systems, a lot of different ones in my past life. A lot of them are very technical, right? Get into the, Six Sigma and standard deviations, and they're tied to the PLC, and it gives you great data and great analytics. But it's missing the people connection point. And that's the engagement, the chats, the forums, the connectivity, where it allows everybody in your plant, if it's implemented right? I mean, everybody has a voice, and you get everybody. I have a big poster in my office. I said, this is the direction we're rowing. I said, everybody in the boat's got to be rowing in the same direction. If we get more people on the boat, then we just need to keep heading in the same direction, and just more oars in the water, and then we'll start building momentum and growing. And once you get everybody engaged and everybody on board and everybody rowing in the right direction, the results can be tremendous. And you asked about earlier a little bit of what are you doing to retain and attract. I always tell my team, we're all recruiters here. Talent attracts talent, and it's all of our jobs to recruit for the organization. Hourly folks, salaried, HR, it's not about the sign-on bonuses, the benefits. It's about the relationships and talent attracting talent. So we put a lot of our investment on our frontline leadership resources. So because they have typically the most people reporting to them, and that to me is the key spot for the team. We invest heavily in that spot.
And I think identifying talent in the plant has historically been a challenge. I know, Nate, you've shared this in the past, but what have you seen in terms of people emerging that you didn't necessarily see coming using Redzone?
Yeah, I think as we've talked, and we've had some pretty exciting numbers come out of the transition that we've made over the last 4 years. And what we see is the people that are engaged in Redzone might not be the ones that you would expect to be engaged in Redzone. And so we have the ability through utilizing Tableau on the top to look at chats. We have anyone that's putting in activities, senses. Those types of individuals, they come out of the woodwork when you have those types of individuals utilizing, being engaged in, excited about the technology. They're diamond in the roughs that we haven't been able to see without some sort of platform like this, and Redzone's been perfect for us. So we've seen a lot of talent come out of Redzone that would have just been lost in the shuffle if we hadn't had that. And so we're recruiting right off our shop floor a lot of times for our frontline leaders and moving them into those frontline roles, and even moving them into leadership roles in the organization throughout. So.
And what kind of impact has that had from a productivity standpoint?
Yeah, I think productivity is great. That is, but if you talk to us at Honeyville, what's really impactful is the people's lives, and being able to have guys that had no prior hope of moving into some sort of leadership role, and for our plant managers or operations managers to go and target them directly because of their engagement in a technology, and then say, we're going to invest in you. That's what really matters to us at Honeyville. Productivity comes along. The financial success comes after the employee success in our world. So I think it's been fabulous. And I'll tell you, we go home feeling better about ourselves as C-level leaders that we made these decisions. We take all the credit. We don't let Redzone have it. So
that's all good. We want you.
I'm kidding. I'm joking. We obviously we're here on the panel. We'd be at the slot machines right now.
Exactly. That'll be later.
Yeah.
And I think building on that, Jeremiah, we talked about the impact that you're not just affecting one person's lives. I think you had a rule of
story.
Thumb there.
Yeah, that's true. So the story that Matt's referring to is I had another old boss. I had a lot of old bosses throughout my career, but he said for every employee you have, Jeremiah, he said you need to multiply that by 6. He said, so if you got 100 people working for you, you're actually affecting 600 people's livelihoods, because that's the multiplier of how many people that it affects in terms of their kids or their significant other. So that stuck with me. I mean, he told me that when I was in my early 20s about how important my role as a leader was in your impact to these players on your team. So it stuck with me. And again, I go back to my other boss that said, constantly know that you're in the people business. And I just read a quote today on LinkedIn. I can't remember exactly how it went, but it's like, it was something to the tune that you don't build a company, we build people, and the people build the company. And if you have that attitude about the way you do your business, I think it'll show some results.
Absolutely.
Now, Mark, I saw an interview with you for the city of Henderson, and you were really talking about the culture of Ocean Spray, but also the city was growing and trying to attract people to move there. What has Ocean Spray done to attract talent, especially as the city's grown up around it?
Yeah, I think Henderson and the Las Vegas area is challenging in and of itself because it's typically a service industry, right? So kids that are in high school, they're not looking at how do I get to make juice or how do I get to make a product. They're thinking, hey, I can get a job at a casino. So we've had to reinvent ourselves, but really, and this speaks to what both Jeremiah and Nathan have said, is building a culture within the organization locally. That has been our marketing for the most part. So being able to be an employer of choice it's not just words. There's employees that, when you're bringing in a bunch of kids from 9th grade that want to see what manufacturing looks like, I'm not up there talking about it. It's our employees talking about it. And I think, that you can put an ad in a newspaper, you can run an ad on Facebook, you can do all those things, LinkedIn. But at the end of the day, being able to have your employees be able to talk about the business in a way that speaks to the theme that you hear up here. And that tied directly for us. I mean, Redzone for us, we didn't go into Redzone looking for the productivity improvement per se, because we were a pretty mature group. And we had some of our own kind of Redzone type programs that were antiquated but worked. But what it unlocked for us was the community within the plant that really galvanizes the relationships, which is the marketing tool when you're trying to attract employees. You're not gonna, we've run job fairs at the plant in Henderson, and frankly, you get 100 people and we might get 3 out of that 100. Because you're looking for that quality of individual that believes in the philosophy that plays out in that space of Redzone every day. So it's I think, like Chris may have said it earlier, it's a lot of work. It's not as simple as saying, hey, let's just tell everybody we're really good. Because they're going to walk in the door in day 1 or day 9 or day 90, they're going to figure it out pretty quick that you're either what you say or you're not, and that's the difference, in my opinion.
You mentioned you've had other systems. I think you've all worked with other technologies out there. Why hasn't that driven the same result in the past, or what's different about Redzone compared to other systems you've used in the past?
For me, some of the early system. It basically it was a reporting tool. It lacked all of the communication, engagement aspect of it. And to be honest, sometimes, you're just trying to move the needle a little bit. Some of the analytics, you needed a PhD to understand the report, like how many sigmas and what's this, that, and the other. And it's just too much for the shop floor. Unless you had, a handful of industrial engineers on your team, you couldn't make heads or tails of it. It was great for management. You could talk to the numbers and make some headway. But by far, the biggest piece that was missing was the engagement, connection element that Redzone brings, for sure, bar none. And that's what moves the needle the most, right? People, and it's simple. It's red, yellow, green. And the team, they just want to be in the green, right? My team hates me saying this. I said, think of it this way. If we all had to come in to work, the very first thing that we did was step on a scale and write how much we weigh. I guarantee you, as a plant, we would lose a bunch of weight without even creating one single action plan or any activity. Just having that visualization. And so there's that element, right? It's very simple, very easy to understand. It's live, it's intuitive. You were talking about it. I can bring my iPad home to my 10-year-old and, oh yeah, you're in the green. Good job, Dad. You got a smiley emoji, thumbs up. Give him a high five, why don't you? All right, let's do it.
Love it. Anything to add with your prior experience compared to?
So I think for us, or for me specifically, what I've seen in my career is I would sum it up a lot of what Jeremiah said, but I would also sum it up as everything else that I've used has been built with the engineers or the plant leadership or the C-suite individuals in mind. What Redzone is different to me is it's built based upon the frontline employee in line. Yep. And then the reporting function that you need out of that comes from Tableau and things. So I think what Redzone has done different that I've seen in my career from what I've seen before is Redzone put where the money is made, where the magic happens first, rather than who gets paid the most or has the biggest title.
Yeah, I think on the retention front, it's a couple things. It's celebrating, right? So you're not celebrating everything. We don't just go out and celebrate because we hit our production goal for a day, but really lumping together, whether it's a safety event, a quality event, a great decision by an operator, taking a moment to be able to call them out, be it through Redzone, be it on their team handoff, in a huddle. But really, I think that personal interaction and recognition in real time, I think that goes a long way. And I think the other thing is being in tune to the reality of where we are. There's a lot of people that show up for work every day. Not everybody likes what they're doing, and not everybody appreciates where they work. But I think being able to take a second and step back and focus on more than just the productivity piece of it. One of these guys said it, and I don't remember, I'm sorry, Nathan, Jeremiah, which one of you said it, but being able to, take a step back and identify that moment or that winning, situation where you're able to, call out the good work of a group or a group of folks or identify that. Taking a step back out of the reality of the last year and a half, 2 years, I think that's the difference between someone who comes to work and works. I'm not going to knock Amazon, but when you're there, you're a part of a group of people that are doing X. This is based on what we hear from employees that come in and interview. And maybe in a culture like what we have, it's a little bit different. We do celebrate wins because we're not making money if we're not putting cases out the back door. But there's a way to do that that's inclusive and makes people feel like it's a good place to work. So it's one-off events for me. I think that one-on-one interaction, whether it's the site leader or a supervisor, stopping and saying, hey, I really appreciate what you did. Good call last night. Not just putting it in the Redzone app like, hey, there's your little smiley face. I think it's more than that. I think that's one way to get that group interaction, but I think the one-on-one personal interaction, more important than ever.
I think one thing we've looked at as well is our culture is we want to be that family team, and I think all of us do. One way that we do it is we also want to make sure that their families feel part of our family in the plant. And so we've started doing plant tours for family members, plant family days. Now that's difficult in a food manufacturer. We've had to shut down for those days. But what we're trying to do is it's long-term recruiting, you could call it, because we'd love to have all their kids come and work for us as well. But if you can link to their family and their wife or their husband or their spouse is talking about what happened at Honeyville that day, and they can have some interaction there, that just brings that team closer together. And so. The
only thing I guess I would add to, I think everybody's different, right? I think it first starts with understanding the individual. Seek first to understand before you can be understood. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, highly effective people. So everybody's different, but I agree with what Mark and all those are good tools and ideas. One other thing that I do is measure my leading indicators, right? The OEE improvement's great, right? The productivity component, is great, the compliance. But I measure chats, work order creators, who's completing the action. So we just had a big celebration. We had a big luau last week, and the plant celebrated the 88% productivity OEE lift, but we celebrated individual contributors based on most chats, master action creator. Who completed the most actions, number of high fives. Those were the individual, because those are the leading. If the team is doing all those things, the success will come, right? But if you're just focused on the number after the fact, the waste, the downtime, it's after the fact. So that's what I look at. And my team knows that I measure the engagement piece. I have my own Tableau reports that I do. And I just, from an individual, some people don't like that attention. They're like putting it up on the board and their name. So you got to understand the individual. And then I mentioned earlier, talent attracts talent. I've challenged my team. We are the recruiters for the organization. I do not want to hire anybody that's not employed. That's my ultimate goal. If we can pull talented people, because a lot of people, like you talked about, the sign-on bonuses, you'll get them, they get their sign-on bonus, they're gone. I want to hire, and we're not doing this, it's the goal, but I don't want to hire anybody that's not employed.
Awesome. Guys, let's give a round of applause for our panel.